It's hard for a person to realize how quickly their life can turn into the exact opposite of what they had planned. 5 years ago, Hamish Eldridge, was full of energy. I worked as a postal superintendent, went fishing on weekends, and could climb the third floor of my apartment without a break. And now every morning begins with the question, will I be able to walk to the bathroom by myself today? Multiple sclerosis. Two words that crossed my 65 years of relatively prosperous living. First, it was just clumsiness, dropping objects, tripping over things. Then my left hip started to go numb. When I fell in a supermarket parking lot, unable to keep my balance and couldn't get up, I had to see a doctor. The diagnosis sounded like a judgment. "Mr. Eldridge, you have progressive multiple sclerosis. I'm very sorry." Dr. Lambert said something about treatments to slow the progression, home adaptations, support groups. I nodded, but the only thought going through my head was that I had 2-3 years left, tops, and for most of that time, I would be helpless. For the past few years, I've lived alone. My wife Eleanor died of pancreatic cancer 8 years ago. We lived together for 32 years, raising our son Garrett. After Eleanor died, I became close to my stairwell neighbor Mildred, but our relationship ended when she moved in with her daughter in Pittsburgh. So now all I have is my son, his wife Audra, and 2 grandchildren, 10-year-old Toby and 8-year-old Nora. We've always had a complicated relationship with Garrett. He grew up a stubborn and ambitious boy who thought I didn't strive hard enough to succeed. Postal inspector? Really, Dad? You could have been anything and you chose that? He never realized that I had found my place, that I loved my job, loved interacting with people, helping solve their problems. I liked the feeling of stability and confidence in the future. Garrett took a different path. He graduated from business school and now works as an insurance appraiser for a large company. Married Audra, as ambitious as he is. She works as an operator in the call center of the bank, but always emphasizes that she holds the position of supervisor and manages a team of 15 people. I see my grandchildren once a month when they come over for the obligatory family dinner. I used to cook myself, but in the last 6 months it has become difficult to cook. My hands fail me. Now I order delivery from a restaurant. Today is family dinner day. I sit in my favorite chair by the window and look at the road. My apartment is small, 2-room, but bright and cozy. Eleanor has always been good at making things cozy. Her embroidered cushions still sit on the couch, her collection of porcelain bells on the shelf. I couldn't throw anything away after she died. Even her clothes still hang in the closet, though Garrett and Audra have offered more than once to clear space. The doorbell rings at exactly 6 o'clock in the evening. I slowly rise from my chair, grab my walker, and go to open it. Every step is an effort, but I manage. "Hey, Dad." Garrett enters first, kissing me carelessly on the cheek. He smells like expensive cologne. "How are you?" "Not bad," I answer, though it's not really my best day. My left leg is a little stiff. Audra walks past me without even looking at me. She heads straight for the kitchen like it's her home. Toby and Nora say hello, but they're back to their tablets. "Kids," Garrett says sternly, "say hello to Grandpa normally." The grandchildren reluctantly approach me. Toby extends his hand for a handshake like an adult. Nora hugs me, but somehow mechanically, not snuggling. "Dad, did you order food?" Garrett asks, walking into the living room and turning on the TV. "Not from the same Chinese place, I hope?" Last time Audra had indigestion. "It's Italian tonight," I answer. "It should be here in 20 minutes. "Italian?" Audra comes back from the kitchen with a disgruntled look. "Garrett, you know I'm on a no-carb diet right now. What am I going to eat?" Garrett shrugs his shoulders. "Dad just didn't think of it. It's okay. There's probably salads in there. I really didn't think. Audra changes diets all the time. It's impossible to keep track. Last month she went dairy-free. The month before, that she went gluten-free." "I'm sorry, Audra. I say. I can call and add a big salad to the order. No need, she waves me off. I'll eat at home. The tone of her voice makes it clear that I've made an unforgivable mistake. I sit in my chair for the next 20 minutes, listening to Garrett and Audra talk about their summer vacation plans. They want to go to the coast, rent a house for 2 weeks. The grandchildren still sit silently, staring at their screens. When the food arrives, Garrett pays, though I try to reach for my wallet. "Come on, Dad," he says with a slight condescension. "I know your pension isn't rubber." That's true. My pension is modest, but I have savings, $450,000 that I've accumulated over the years and received after the sale of my house with Eleanor. I moved into this apartment after she died. Why would I need a big house all by myself? Garrett doesn't know about the savings. I've never told him, afraid he'd pressure me into investing the money on his advice. We take a seat at the table. Audra does take some lettuce and literally sends a leaf each into her mouth, ostentatiously showing she's doing me a favor. "Daddy, you need a haircut," Garrett says as he piles on a big bowl of spaghetti. "You look like a homeless person." I run my hand through my hair. Yeah, it's grown back. I used to go to the barber shop on the corner every month, but now it's become problematic. "It's hard for me to go out," I answer. "You can call a hairdresser at home," says Audra. "It's not that expensive." "I'll think about it." "Grandpa, why are you eating so slowly?" Nora suddenly asks, looking away from the tablet. "Because Grandpa has a disease, honey," Audra answers for me. "He can't move his hands fast enough." "Is it contagious?" There's fear in Nora's eyes. "No, silly," Audra laughs. "It's because Grandpa's old. I feel a prick of resentment. I'm 65, which isn't that old by today's standards. And it's not the age, it's the illness." "Daddy, could you get some more napkins?" Garrett asks. "And by the way, do you have any Parmesan?" I rise slowly, leaning on the table. Napkins are in the cafeteria. No Parmesan. Getting to the buffet is a journey. 3 steps that seem like nothing to a healthy person. To me, it's an ordeal. I can feel Garrett's impatient gaze on me. "Should I help you?" he asks with obvious irritation. "No, I can handle it." I pull out the napkins and walk slowly back to the table. The grandchildren have finished eating and are back to their gadgets. Audra is scribbling something on her phone. "Dad, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time," Garrett says, blotting his mouth with his napkin. "Audra and I think you should consider a nursing home." I freeze with my fork in my hand. "A nursing home?" "A boarding house for the elderly," Audra corrects me. "That sounds better." "I know what it's called," I say, "but I don't want to go there." Garrett sighs. "Dad, be reasonable. Your disease is progressing. Soon you won't be able to take care of yourself. And there will be professionals there to take care of you." "I can still take care of myself." "You can?" Garrett puts his hand around the table. "You can't even make dinner. You can barely walk. What's 6 months from now?" There's no concern in his voice, only irritation. It's like I got sick on purpose to cause him problems. "Grandpa, can I borrow your TV remote control?" Toby suddenly asks. "I need to switch to the sports channel. There's a match on right now." "Sure," I say, though I really want to watch the evening news. "Dad," Garrett continues, "I've already looked into it. There's a nice boarding house in the suburbs. It's not the cheapest, but it's decent. Your pension would be enough if you sold the apartment." "I won't sell the apartment," I say firmly, "and I won't go to a boarding house." "Why are you always so stubborn?" Garrett raises his voice. "Have you thought about us? Audra and I work full time. We have kids. We can't take care of you all the time. I'm not asking you to look after me. Who will? Have you hired a nurse? No. Then we'll have to do it eventually, or pay someone, and that's expensive." Audra puts her hand on Garrett's shoulder. "Honey, don't be nervous. Your father just hasn't fully realized the situation yet." She turns to me with a fake smile. Hamish, we're worried about you. You'll be better off in boarding school. There's companionship, entertainment, medical care. Grandpa, bring me some water, please, Nora asks, keeping her eyes on the tablet. Nora, Audra pulls her back. Grandpa is not a waiter. Go get your own water. But the tone in which she says it and the look she casts at me make it clear that that's what she thinks, that I'm a useless old man now, a burden to their family. Nora gets up reluctantly and goes into the kitchen. A moment later, her voice comes out. Mom, there are no clean glasses. Audra rolls her eyes and goes into the kitchen. I hear her say, God, Hamish has stopped watching the house. It's such a mess. My kitchen is perfect. It's just that yesterday I couldn't reach the top shelf to put clean glasses in, so I left them in the dishwasher. When Audra returns, she looks at me with undisguised pity. Hamish, you do realize this is only going to get worse, right? Did the doctor explain the prognosis to you? Yes, he did. I'm trying to keep calm. And I'm well aware of my situation. Then why are you being so stubborn? She's throwing up her hands. It's for your own good. Grandfather, Toby intervenes, is it true that soon you won't be able to walk at all? Toby, Garrett shouts at him. Don't say that. But you told Mommy yourself that Grandpa will soon be a vegetable, Toby replies innocently. There is silence. Garrett blushes. Audra averts her eyes. I feel something snap inside, like a vegetable. That's how they see me. I think you should go, I say quietly. It's late. The kids have school tomorrow. Dad, that's not what Toby meant. Garrett starts to defend himself. It's okay. I try to smile, but I'm not sure I'm doing it. I'm just tired. They pack up quickly, almost with relief. Audra glances at the remaining food. Should we clear the table? No need, I'll do it myself. Suit yourself, she shrugs and nudges the children toward the exit. Garrett lingers on the doorstep. Dad, you think about what I said. It really is the best option. I nod, just to make him leave faster. As the door closes, I slowly walk back to the table and sit down. I don't have the energy to clean off the table. I just sit and stare at the unfinished pasta, at the scattered napkins, at the sauce stain Toby left on the tablecloth. Like a vegetable. The words roll around in my head. My own son thinks that about me, and maybe he's right. In a year or two, I really will be completely helpless. And then what? The boarding house Garrett is talking about is the last thing I want. I've seen places like that. It smells like medicine and loneliness. It's a place where people live out, not in. But what's my alternative? Hire a caregiver? Full-time. That's expensive. My pension won't cover it. Sell the apartment. But then where would I go? And then it hits me. I've got some savings. $450,000. I always thought I'd leave it to Garrett when I died. But what if I used it now? What if I offered Garrett that money on the condition that he buy a house near me? A house with room for me? I could live with them, help pay the bills. They'd take care of me these last year or two. It's a smart decision, I think. Garrett would get most of the inheritance in my lifetime, and I'd get the care of a family instead of the cold walls of a boarding house. I can even hire a visiting nurse for part of the day so I won't be a total burden to them. I rise slowly and walk over to the secretary where all my papers are kept. I pull out a bank statement showing the amount of money in the account. Yes, $450,000. Enough for a nice house in our neighborhood. Garrett will be happy. He's been wanting to move out of his cramped apartment for a long time. I'll call him tomorrow and explain everything. I'm sure he'll agree. Money changes people, and maybe this money will change Garrett's attitude toward me. Maybe he'll even stop seeing me as a useless old man, a burden, a man who will soon be like a vegetable. With that thought, I finally find the strength to clear the table and go to bed. Tomorrow will be a new day and a new decision. The morning was surprisingly good. I woke up without the usual stiffness in my joints, managed to get to the bathroom on my own, and even made myself some scrambled eggs for breakfast. Days like this are a real gift with my disease. Doctors call it remission when the symptoms temporarily recede. I call it a small miracle and try to make the most of every minute. As I sat at the kitchen table, slowly chewing my scrambled eggs, I replayed in my head the conversation from last night and my decision of the night. In the light of morning, it seemed even more right. $450,000 was a chance for Garrett to get his own house, and for me to avoid the boarding house. After all, this is my family. Despite yesterday's humiliation, despite the words about vegetable, I believed that deep down my son cared about me. I picked up the phone and dialed Garrett's number. He never calls me on his own. I always have to take the initiative. "Dad?" He sounded surprised. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong." I tried to sound cheerful. "I'd like to talk to you about something important. Could you come over today?" "Tonight?" He was clearly hesitating. "Audra and I have plans tonight. We wanted to look at houses in the suburbs." "It won't take long." I tried to hide my disappointment. "And this is really important, Garrett." A pause. I could almost see him rolling his eyes and sighing silently. "Okay," he said finally. "I can stop by on my lunch hour, around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'll only have half an hour." "Thanks, son." I didn't bother to remind him that his office was a 20-minute drive from my apartment. Half an hour to drive and talk. Not too generous, but better than nothing. After the call, I felt an unprecedented surge of energy. I pulled my best sweater out of the closet, a dark blue wool sweater, a gift from Eleanor for our last birthday together. She'd always said that color suited me. Then I slowly but thoroughly cleaned the apartment. I dusted the bookshelves, arranged the cushions on the couch, even managed to vacuum the living room carpet, though it took 3 rest breaks. I wanted Garrett to see that I was still capable of keeping the house in order. At exactly 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Garrett was punctual as always. "Hi, Dad," he came in hurriedly, taking off his coat as he went. "What's the emergency? Something with your health?" "No," I shook my head. "I'm in good health as usual. Come in, sit down. Would you like some coffee?" "No, thanks, I don't have much time." He sat down on the edge of the couch without taking off his jacket. "What was so important you wanted to discuss?" I slowly lowered myself into my chair across from him. My prepared speech suddenly seemed out of place. I decided to be blunt. "Garrett, I have some savings. $450,000. His eyebrows went up. $450,000? From where?" "It's the money from the sale of the house, plus what my mom and I have been saving all our lives. I kept it in a separate account." "And you never talked about it?" He sounded somewhere between surprised and reproachful. "There was no reason to," I shrugged. "But now I've decided I want to give it to you." "Me?" Garrett stepped forward. "All of it?" "Yes, all of it. But on one condition." His face tensed a little. "What condition?" "I want you to buy a house here in our neighborhood. A house with room for me. I could live with you, help pay the bills, and you could take care of me these last few years." Garrett leaned back on the couch. His face became impenetrable. "Are you suggesting we move to Frankfurt and live with you?" "Yes," I nodded. $450,000 would be enough for a nice house in this neighborhood. A 3 or 4 bedroom. You and Audra would have your own half. The kids would have their own rooms, and I'd have a small bedroom and maybe an office. I can even hire a caregiver for part of the day, so I won't be a total burden to you." Garrett was silent, looking somewhere past me. I could see the gears in his head turning, calculating the gains and losses. "It's an unexpected offer, Dad," he said finally. "I need to discuss it with Audra." "Sure," I smiled. "Discuss it. But I'd like to hear your personal opinion now." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I knew from his childhood. It's what he always did when he was nervous or unsure. "Well, It's a very generous offer, he said slowly. And of course, 450,000 is a substantial sum. Audra and I have wanted a house of our own for a long time. But I felt a but coming next. But I'm not sure that Frankfurt is the place we'd like to live. There are no good schools for children here. My work is a long way away. There are fine schools here, I objected. You went to them yourself. That was 25 years ago, Dad. Things are different now. I felt the disappointment building inside me. I'd expected Garrett to be excited about my offer, and he was making excuses. 450,000, Garrett, I repeated. That's money you'll never be able to save on your own, and all I ask in return is that you live with me for these last year or two. He got up, went to the window, stood there looking out at the street. All right, he said at last, turning to me. I'll discuss it with Audra. The offer is really tempting. Something in his tone made me wary, but I decided to ignore it. After all, I was offering him a large sum of money. No wonder he needed time to think about it. When can you give me an answer? I asked. Let's do it tomorrow. He looked at his watch. I have to get back to work. Okay. I got up with difficulty to walk him out. Call me tomorrow. He nodded, gave me a quick hug, a little warmer than usual, and left. I spent the rest of the day strangely excited. I imagined how we would all live together in the new house, how I would read stories to Nora and Toby in the evenings, how I'd have breakfast with Garrett before he left for work, how on weekends we would eat lunch together in the garden. In the evening, I got worse. The remission was over, the stiffness in my arms and legs had returned. I struggled to make dinner, reheated last night's pasta, and went to bed early, feeling exhausted physically and emotionally. The next day, Garrett didn't call, not at lunch or in the evening. I didn't call myself. I didn't want to pressure him. Perhaps he and Audra needed more time to discuss things. 2 more days passed, no calls. I started to worry. Maybe something happened. Or was he just stalling, not knowing how to politely decline? On the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore and called him myself. Audra answered the phone. "Ah, Hamish," she said with feigned joy in her voice. "How is your health?" "I'm fine," I answered. "Can I talk to Garrett?" "Unfortunately, he's not home. He's in a meeting with his realtor." "A realtor?" My heart sped up. So they'd made up their minds. Yeah, Audra was clearly embarrassed. Looking at different options." "I see," I said. "Please ask him to call me back when he gets back." "I will," she promised, and quickly ended the call. Garrett didn't call back that evening. He didn't call the next day either. I began to think that my offer had been a mistake. Maybe I had embarrassed him. Maybe he didn't want to live with me but didn't know how to refuse the money. On the 4th day, I decided to take a different course of action. I called my neighbor, Doris Willoughby. She's 82 years old, lives across the hall, and we often help each other. "Doris," I said when she picked up the phone, "could you help me? I need to go to the bank, but today's not a good day for traveling on my own." "Sure, Hamish," she said cheerfully. "I was just about to go for a walk. Fresh air is good for the joints, my doctor says." Doris is an energetic woman despite her age and arthritis. She drives an old Ford and still does her own shopping. Half an hour later, we were on our way to the bank. At the bank, I checked the account and made sure the money was there. Doris was waiting for me in the lobby, and when I came out, she suggested, "Why don't we stop at Starbucks?" My treat. They're having some kind of promotion on a new kind of coffee today. I agreed, even though I usually avoid coffee shops. The Starbucks was in a shopping center near the bank. Doris and I were walking slowly down the aisle between the stores when I suddenly heard a familiar voice. Garrett. He was sitting at a table in a small cafe, his back to me, talking to some man in a business suit. "Doris," I paused, "do you mind if we go to that cafe over there instead of Starbucks?" "Of course not," she shrugged. "It's even less crowded." We walked into the cafe and sat down at a table not far from Garrett. He was so engrossed in the conversation that he didn't notice us. I listened. "A really great offer," the man in the suit said, spreading out some papers on the table. 3 bedrooms, a living room overlooking the ocean, a terrace, a small garden. And the price is very reasonable for the location. It looks beautiful. Garrett looked at the pictures. Audra will love that kitchen with the island. And the kids will love that it's only a 5-minute walk to the beach. He smiled. And the school is close by, one of the best in the area. I froze. A house by the ocean, but we were talking about a house here in Frankfurt. "So when do you plan to move?" a man asked, apparently a realtor. "As soon as we close the deal," Garrett answered. "I think within a month to a month and a half." "Is your current house for sale?" "No, we're living in a rented apartment." Garrett sipped his coffee. "But we have the money for a down payment. Or rather, we'd have it soon." I could feel the blood rushing to my face. They were planning to use my money to buy a house by the ocean. "What about your father?" the realtor suddenly asked, and I froze. "You said he was sick and needed care." Garrett sighed. "Yes, that's true. But we found a good boarding house for him here in Frankfurt. Sunnylands. You may have heard of it?" "No, I haven't." The realtor shook his head. "But I'm sure if you've chosen it, it's a good deal." "More than acceptable," Garrett nodded. "And most importantly, the staff is trained to work with people with progressive illnesses. My father has multiple sclerosis, and he needs professional care." "I understand," the realtor nodded sympathetically. "It's the right thing to do. You can't be torn between work, family, and caring for your sick father." "Exactly." Garrett was clearly pleased with the understanding. "And besides, Dad himself insisted that we use the money to buy our dream house. He wants us to be happy." It took my breath away. It was an outright lie. I never said anything like that. "Here's your tea, Hamish." Doris placed a cup in front of me. "And I got us blueberry tarts. I hope you don't mind." I could hardly speak. I was shaking with anger and frustration. "Thank you, Doris," I said. "But, I suddenly felt sick. Could you take me home?" By some miracle, we managed to leave the cafe unnoticed. Garrett was too absorbed in discussing the details of the deal to notice his father, whom he had so easily betrayed. I didn't say a word the whole way home. Doris tried to make conversation, but she quickly realized I wasn't in the mood, so she shut up too. She drove me home, helped me up to the apartment, and offered to stay with me, seeing my condition, but I refused. I needed to be alone. When the door closed behind Doris, I sank into the chair and covered my face with my hands. How could I have been so naive? How could I have believed that Garrett and Audra would actually agree to live with me, to take care of me? Their whole plan was clear now. They were going to take my money, buy a house by the ocean, and put me in a boarding house. The very boarding house I'd been so reluctant to go to, and Garrett wasn't even afraid to lie to the realtor that I'd insisted on it. I was reminded of what Eleanor said. She'd always said Garrett was too much like my father, just as selfish and calculating. I'd always defended my son, saying he was just ambitious, driven, that he'd grow up and be more caring, that it's just his character, a bit callous but kind at heart. I could see now that Eleanor was right. Garrett would never change. He'll always think only of himself and his family. I'm just a burden to him that needs to be put somewhere else so it doesn't interfere with his happy life by the ocean. The phone rang, interrupting my bitter musings. I looked at the screen. Garrett. Apparently he'd come home and seen the missed call from me. Or maybe he'd finally decided to tell me about his decision. I didn't answer. I needed time to decide what to do next. And the decision came almost immediately, crystal clear and simple. I wouldn't give Garrett a dime. Not for the ocean house, not for anything. It was money I'd been saving all my life, and it would stay mine. I picked up my phone and dialed the bank's number, asking to be connected to my manager. "Mr. Eldridge, what can I do for you?" he asked. I want to block the ability to transfer funds from my account, I said firmly. I had recently considered transferring a large sum of money to my son, but now I've changed my mind. I want to make sure that no money leaves my account without my personal presence at the bank. After talking to the bank manager, I felt a strange calmness. I now knew that my money was safe, that Garrett couldn't access it without my knowledge. It gave me a sense of control, a rare feeling in my current life, where control over my own body was slipping away with each passing day. I spent the evening reading, trying not to think about my son's betrayal. The book, a historical novel about 18th century warfare, wasn't very engaging, but at least it distracted me from my gloomy thoughts. The phone rang a few more times. All Garrett's. I didn't pick it up. I wasn't ready to talk. Or rather, I didn't want to give away my plans ahead of time. The next morning, I woke up to the insistent ringing of the doorbell. The clock read 9 o'clock in the morning. Who could have come so early? I struggled to get out of bed, grabbed my walker, and slowly made my way to the door. The bell rang again, more insistently. I'm coming, I mumbled, even though I knew I couldn't be heard at the door. I opened the door and saw Garrett. His hair was disheveled, his tie was askew, and his eyes were red as if he hadn't slept. Finally, he blurted, pushing past me into the apartment. Why aren't you answering your cell phone? I've been trying to reach you all night. I was asleep, I answered calmly, closing the door slowly. And last night I took a bath. I left my phone in the other room. It was a lie, but I didn't want to admit that I'd deliberately ignored his calls. What happened? I asked, even though I'd already guessed. Garrett turned toward me, his face contorted with anger and panic. What happened? Are you seriously asking me that? The money. The money's gone. That's what happened. I walked slowly to my chair and sat down, gesturing for Garrett to sit across from me. He remained standing, pacing the room. What money? I asked, trying to keep my voice innocent. Don't pretend, Dad. He raised his voice. The $450,000 you were talking about. They're not in the account. Why should they be in your account? I asked, still calm. Not my account, but the one you were going to give me. Garrett was literally spitting out words. I went to the bank yesterday to find out the details of the transfer, and the manager said there was no money, that the account was empty. I didn't expect him to go to the bank so quickly. Apparently, after his meeting with the realtor, he decided not to waste any time. He was in a hurry to secure his loot. The account is not empty, I said calmly. The money's there. You just can't access it. Garrett stopped half-stepping, staring at me. What do you mean I can't access it? It means I've changed my mind. I looked him straight in the eye. I'm not giving you that money. You're... what? It was like he couldn't believe his ears. But we had a deal. You offered. I offered on a certain condition, I reminded him. You were supposed to buy a house here in Frankfurt with room for me. But instead, you're going to buy a house on the ocean and put me in a boarding house. Garrett turned pale. His mouth opened and closed like a beached fish. Where did you... he started, but I interrupted. I saw you yesterday, at a coffee shop at the mall, with a realtor. I was sitting at the table next to you and I heard the whole conversation. He ran his hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture I knew so well. Dad, you've got it all wrong, he began, but his voice sounded unconvincing even to himself. Misunderstood? I grinned. I heard you talking about the ocean house, about it being a 5-minute walk to the beach, about the beautiful kitchen for Audra, and about you finding a place for me at Sunnyvale. What exactly did I misunderstand? It was just a preliminary conversation. Garrett tried to get out of it. We're looking at different options. And yes, one of them is a house by the ocean, but... And the interesting thing is, I continued, ignoring his excuses, you told the realtor that I insisted that you buy the house of your dreams, that I wanted you to be happy. When did I ever say that, Garrett? He slumped down on the couch, suddenly losing all his energy. Dad, look, he began in a different tone. I know how this looks, but we were really thinking of your good. The facilities at Sunnyvale are excellent. Professional medical staff. You'll be better off there than with us. Better for who? I asked. For me or for you? For everyone, Garrett said. You know your disease is progressing. Soon you won't be able to walk at all. You'll need constant care. Audra and I work full-time. Who will be with you? Who's going to help you with the basics? I could hire a caregiver for part of the day, I reminded her. I talked about that. A part-time caregiver isn't going to solve the problem, Garrett shook his head. A boarding house would take care of you 24 hours a day. And there's socializing, other people your age. People my age? I felt the anger boiling up inside me again. I'm 65 years old, Garrett. That's not that old by today's standards. The average age of patients at Sunnyvale is 85. There are no people my age there. You're picking on words, Garrett was getting annoyed. The point is that you need professional care, and a boarding house is the best place for that. You know what I think? I leaned forward as far as my body would allow. I think it's just convenient for you and Audra to get rid of me. Stuff me in a boarding house and go to the ocean with my money, and come back once a month for a formal visit to ease your conscience. That's not fair. Garrett jumped up. We care about you. We want the best for you. If you cared about me, you would respect my wishes, I said firmly. And I made it clear that I don't want to go to a boarding house. I want to spend the last years of my life with my family, not among strangers who smell of drugs and despair. You're being dramatic, Garrett shook his head. Modern boarding houses aren't what you think they are. I've been to Sunnylands, I said. 3 years ago, I visited George Parker, a former colleague of mine. I know how things work there. Sterile, impersonal, and smells of disinfectants and old age. Garrett was silent, apparently not knowing what to say. Finally, he changed tactics. All right, have it your way, he said with feigned resignation. We'll buy a house here in Frankfurt. You'll live with us. We'll take care of you. Is that what you want? I looked at him for a long moment. His eyes were running, not meeting mine. His hands rubbed the edge of his jacket. He was lying. He just wanted the money and thought he could fool me again. No, Garrett, I said calmly. I've changed my mind. I'm not giving you that money, not under any circumstances. His face contorted with anger. The mask of the caring son had fallen away. You can't do this, he shouted. You suggested it. You can't just change your mind. I can, I shrugged. It's my money. I earned it. I can use it however I want. We were about to make a deal. He was running around the room. We've put down a deposit. That's your problem, I said. I didn't ask you to put down a deposit, and I didn't promise you the money unconditionally. He was panting with rage. You set this whole thing up on purpose, didn't you? Lured me in with an offer of money and then you turned me down? Is this some kind of twisted revenge? Why would I want revenge on you, Garrett? I asked, genuinely surprised. Because I'm not living the life you want me to live. For not following in your footsteps. For not becoming a postal worker like you. I shook my head. He still didn't understand. I never wanted you to follow in my footsteps, I said quietly. I wanted you to be happy, to do what you like, and I'm proud of what you've accomplished. But I'm disappointed in the kind of man you've become. What kind of man? He squinted. A man who lies to his own father. A man who discusses how to get rid of his parent like he's a piece of junk. A man who speaks of his father as a vegetable. Garrett shuddered. He remembered that ill-fated family dinner and Toby's words. It was just a figure of speech, he muttered. No, Garrett, I shook my head. It was what you really think it was. And you know what the saddest part is? You could have just told me the truth, that you didn't want to live with me, that you and Audra dream of a house by the ocean. I would have understood. I might even have helped you with the money, not the whole amount, but something. But you decided to go the way of lies and manipulation." Garrett was silent, staring at the floor. Finally, he looked up. "And now what?" he asked hoarsely. "Nothing now," I answered. "You go home. You explain to Audra that there'll be no money. Cancel the deal, lose the deposit. Life will go on. And you? What will you do?" "I'll find another solution to my problem," I said. "Don't worry about it." "Don't worry about it?" He's starting to freak out again. "You just robbed us of a chance at a better life. You deceived us, gave us hope, and then took it away." "I didn't deceive you," I countered. "I offered you money on certain conditions. You chose to ignore those conditions." "Because your terms were impossible," he raised his voice. "You wanted us to sacrifice our future for your comfort." "I wanted you to give me the last 2 years of my life," I said quietly. "2 years, Garrett. After the 32 years your mother and I have devoted to you." He averted his eyes but then looked at me again with challenge. "Don't try to push pity. I didn't ask you to give birth to me. It was your decision, not mine." I felt something shatter inside. This was no longer my son. He was a stranger, a cold man for whom family was just a burden. "I think you should leave," I said calmly. "Oh, now you're kicking me out?" He grinned. "That's fine. You know what? I'm gonna leave. I'm not coming back. And I'm not bringing the kids. Let them remember you as you are now, not as a helpless old man who can't even go to the bathroom by himself." His words hurt more than he realized. To deprive me of my grandchildren was cruel, but I didn't let it get to me. "It's your decision," I said. "I won't force you or the children to visit me. And don't think I'm going to take care of you when you get worse," he continued, clearly hoping to hurt me more. "You chose to be alone, so live with it." "I can handle it," I said simply. "Don't worry about me." "Oh, I'm not going to." He grabbed his coat. "You don't exist to me anymore." With those words, he walked out, slamming the door loudly. I remained sitting in the chair, staring at the closed door. Strangely, I felt no grief or regret, only fatigue and some strange relief, as if the heavy weight I'd been carrying for years had finally fallen from my shoulders. I knew Garrett had said it in anger, that maybe he'd cool down and change his mind, that maybe we'd make up again. But deep down, I knew that our relationship would never be the same. Something had finally broken. And it wasn't the money. Money only exposed something that had existed for a long time, the lack of real, sincere love between us. I slowly got up from the chair and went to the kitchen. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, looking out at the street. Life went on. People were hurrying about their business, unaware of the little family drama playing out in the apartment on the third floor. I had to think about the future, how to go on living without family support, how to organize my care as my illness progressed, how to manage my money. And then I remembered the picture on the bookshelf. Me, Vernon, and his daughter Evelyn. I wonder how she's doing now. Maybe I should give her a call, invite her in for a cup of tea, just to talk about books, about life. Not offer money and a deal. That would be rude and disrespectful. Just to re-establish contact, to see how she was doing. I sipped my tea and looked at my phone. The call could wait until tomorrow. Today, I felt exhausted. The emotional strain had exhausted me as much as the physical activity. I spent the entire day at home reading and thinking. The phone was silent. Neither Garrett nor Audra called. I didn't expect them to call, but still every time I walked past the phone, I involuntarily glanced at the screen. That evening came a text from Nora. "Grandpa, do you really not want to see us anymore?" My heart clenched. Garrett had already managed to turn the kids against me. I replied, "Nora, honey, I'm always happy to see you and Toby. Daddy and I have a little misunderstanding, but it has nothing to do with you. I love you and always will." There was no reply. Most likely, Garrett or Audra had seen my message and forbade Nora from responding. During the night, I had a strange dream. I was young and healthy, walking on the beach with Eleanor and little Garrett. We were building sand castles, laughing, running along the water's edge. Garrett was so happy, so carefree. He looked at me with adoration, with love. When I woke up, there were tears on my pillow. In the morning, I felt better physically, but worse mentally. The emptiness and loneliness came on with renewed vigor. I knew it would pass, that I would get used to the new reality as I had gotten used to Eleanor's death, as I had gotten used to my illness. One gets used to everything. But it was hard now. I forced myself to get up, wash my face, eat breakfast. The routine helped me not to sink into depression. After breakfast, I called the bank and made an appointment with a lawyer to change the will. Then I started looking in the phone book for Evelyn Prescott's number. I could call the library, but I wasn't sure if she still worked there. As I was leafing through the phone book, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting visitors. Maybe Garrett had decided to come back and continue the conversation, or was it the mailman with a package? I slowly walked to the door and opened it. Audra stood on the threshold. She looked unfamiliar with no makeup, plain clothes, and a tired face. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped back, letting her inside. She walked into the living room and sat on the couch, putting her hands on her knees. I sat across from her in my chair. "Garrett's furious," she began without preamble. "He says you tricked us, that you offered us money on purpose and then turned it down to humiliate us." "That's not true," I replied calmly. "I did want to help you buy a house, but I was honest about the terms. The house had to be here in Frankfurt, and there had to be room for me in it." "But why here?" she asked, and there was genuine incomprehension in her voice. "Frankfurt isn't a great neighborhood. The schools are mediocre, the infrastructure is outdated. Why are you so attached to this place?" "Because it's my life," I answered. "I know every street, every store. My few friends live here. This is where I feel at home." She shook her head. "But isn't it better to start fresh? In a new place with new opportunities?" "At my age and with my illness, new opportunities is a frightening rather than an attractive prospect," I smiled. "I don't want to start from scratch. I want to spend the rest of my time in familiar, comfortable surroundings with the people I love." Audra looked at me as if trying to understand something important. "Garrett said you don't want to see your grandchildren anymore," she said finally. "That's not true," I shook my head. "I love Toby and Nora. I'll always be happy to see them. Garrett was the one who said he wouldn't bring them to me anymore." "He was furious," Audra sighed. "You know what he's like when he's angry. He says things he regrets." "I know," I nodded. "He's always been like that ever since he was a kid. He's always been like that ever since he was a kid." We were silent for a moment. Then Audra spoke again. "Hamish, I understand how you feel, but understand us too. We really want what's best for the kids. A house by the ocean isn't just a fad. It's an opportunity for them to grow up in a clean neighborhood, to go to a good school, to have friends from good families." "I understand," I said. "And I'm not judging you for this desire. I'm just asking you to be honest with me, not to make promises you have no intention of keeping." She nodded without looking at me. "And now what?" she asked, echoing Garrett's question from yesterday. "Now everyone will go their own way," I answered. "You'll live your life, and I'll live mine. Hopefully, in time, the resentment will pass and we can rebuild some kind of relationship, for the children's sake, if not for our own. Are you sure you can handle this on your own?" For the first time, she sounded genuinely concerned. "Your illness." "I'll find a solution," I said. "Don't worry about me." She stood up, clearly getting ready to leave. "You know," she said at the door, "Garrett really loves you. He just doesn't know how to show it." "I know," I said, "and I love him. But sometimes love isn't enough." She nodded and left. closing the door quietly behind her. After Audra left, I sat in the chair for a while, staring out the window. Our conversation had left a strange aftertaste, bitter and hopeful at the same time. On the one hand, I had lost my son. On the other, I had gained freedom. Freedom from manipulation, from guilt, from false expectations. I shifted my gaze to the bookshelf where the picture of Vernon and Evelyn stood. It had been taken at Evelyn's graduation almost 20 years ago. Vernon had been my best friend since my youth. We worked at the post office together, went fishing together, and cheered on the same soccer team together. He died 3 years ago of a heart attack, suddenly and unexpectedly. I still miss our long conversations, his laughter, his ability to see the good in even the most difficult situations. His daughter Evelyn was always a special girl, quiet, thoughtful, with deep blue eyes similar to her father's. She lost her mother early. Evelyn Prescott died of cancer when Evelyn was only 12. Vernon raised her daughter alone, and I often helped him with advice. After all, I had experience as a father, albeit not a successful one as it turned out. Evelyn grew up a well-read, intelligent girl. She graduated with a degree in library science and got a job at the Frankfurt City Library. We often met there when I came in to get new books. She always found something interesting for me, something I might not have chosen myself, but which turned out to be exactly what I needed to read at that moment. She and I shared a love of classic literature. We could spend hours discussing Dickens and Tolstoy, Hemingway and Fitzgerald. She always surprised me with the depth of her understanding, her unusual interpretations of familiar texts. She was interesting to talk to, a rare quality in our time. After Vernon's death, Evelyn and I saw each other at the funeral and then a few times at the library. But my illness progressed. It became increasingly difficult to get out, and gradually our communication fell off. The last time I saw her was probably a year and a half ago when she helped me carry a bag of books home. I remember that at that time she looked gaunt and tired. When I asked her if she was okay, she brushed it off, saying it was just a lot of work. But Vernon had once told me that after a failed marriage, Evelyn had debts. Her ex-husband wasn't the most honest man, and working in a library, for all its intellectual value, never brought much money. I wondered how she was doing now. I picked up my cell phone and started looking for her number. I had an old one, written down while Vernon was still alive, but I wasn't sure if it was still valid. I had to give it a try. I dialed the number and listened to the beeps with some excitement. 1, 2, 3. On the fourth ring, the phone was picked up. Hello? A woman's voice sounded wary. Evelyn? I asked. It's Hamish Eldridge, a friend of your father's. Do you remember me? A pause. Then the voice warmed noticeably. Mr. Eldridge, of course I remember you. How are you? I haven't seen you in the library for a long time. Unfortunately, my health doesn't allow me to go out as often as I used to, I answered, but I miss our literary conversations. I do too, she said with sincerity. You were one of the few visitors with whom you could actually talk about books, not just discuss the latest gossip. We talked a bit about literature, about the latest books we'd read. Then I decided to ask a more personal question. Evelyn, how are you doing? In general, I mean. Work, life? She sighed. Honestly, not so good. The library's being downsized, funding cut. My hours have been cut, so my salary's been cut, and the costs are only going up. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. It's not fair. Libraries are the heart of the city's culture. Yes, but you can't explain that to politicians, she sounded bitter. They only see the numbers in the budget. We talked some more, and I finally decided to do what I had called for. Evelyn, could you come round for a cup of tea sometime? There's something important I'd like to discuss with you. Of course. She didn't hesitate for a second. When would be convenient for you? Tonight, perhaps. Or is that too sudden? No, tonight would be fine, she replied. I just have a short day at the library today. I can be at your place around 6 this evening. I'll be waiting, I said, feeling a strange excitement, almost like a date. What a silly thing to say, I told myself. I'm 65, I'm sick, and this is a business proposal, not a romantic encounter. After talking to Evelyn, I decided to tidy up the apartment. Of course, I couldn't do any serious cleaning, but I could at least dust and organize the books on the shelves. I also ordered a delivery of cakes from the nearest pastry shop. Evelyn, I remembered, liked eclairs with vanilla cream. The day dragged on slowly. I tried to read, but I couldn't concentrate. My thoughts kept returning to the upcoming conversation. How to start? What to say? Would my suggestion seem insulting? Would Evelyn think I was trying to buy her attention and care? At 6:30, the cakes arrived. I set them on a plate, put the kettle on, and waited. At exactly 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Evelyn was punctual as always. I opened the door and saw her, a little older than the last time I had seen her, but still as graceful, with the same thoughtful look in her blue eyes. Mr. Eldridge, she smiled and handed me a small package. I brought you Ishiguro's new book. I think you'll like it. Thank you, Evelyn. I was touched by her attention. And please, call me Hamish. After all, we've known each other for so many years. She nodded and went into the apartment. I noticed that she was scrutinizing the place, as if assessing my living conditions. Come in, sit down. I pointed to the armchair by the window. Tea is almost ready. Let me help you. She went to the kitchen. Where are your cups? In the cabinet above the sink, I answered, following her. But I can handle it, really. I know, she smiled, but it'll be faster this way. She deftly retrieved the cups, brewed the tea, and transferred the cakes to small plates. Her movements were economical, precise, no fuss. She reminded me of Eleanor, who could also do housework with a certain grace. We settled down in the living room, I in my chair, she on the sofa. We talked for a while about nothing, the weather, new books, the latest city news. Then she cautiously moved on to a more personal topic. Hamish, how is your health? I see you're using a walker. Yes, I nodded. I have multiple sclerosis. Progressive. I was diagnosed 5 years ago, but it's been getting worse faster the last 2 years. I'm so sorry. She looked at me with genuine sympathy. Dad didn't say anything. He probably didn't know, though. Vernon died before things got really bad, I explained. I could still walk with a cane then, and the symptoms weren't as noticeable. She nodded, sipping her tea. And your son? Does he help you? I sighed. The question was inevitable, but it still hurt. Garrett and we have a complicated relationship, I said carefully. Especially now. I'm sorry, she said, embarrassed. I didn't mean to pry. It's okay, I said with a wave of my hand. He and I just have a different outlook on life, on commitment, on family. I didn't talk about our fight, about Garrett's betrayal. It would have been inappropriate. We continued our conversation, jumping from topic to topic. Evelyn talked about her work at the library, about the funding cuts, about how hard it was to get young people to read. I noticed that she avoided talking about her personal life, so I didn't ask. If she wanted to, she would tell me herself. Finally, when the tea was drunk and most of the cakes had been eaten, I decided it was time to get down to business. Evelyn, I began, gathering my thoughts, I didn't invite you here just for the sake of a pleasant conversation, though I have missed our talks. She looked at me carefully, waiting for me to continue. I have a business proposition for you, I said bluntly. A rather unusual one, but I hope it's interesting to you. I'm listening. She leaned forward, putting her hands on her knees. As you have already realized, my health is deteriorating, I began. The doctors say that in a year and a half I probably won't be able to walk at all. There will be problems with fine motor skills and possibly speech and memory. I will need help, not medical help. There are special services for that, but domestic help. Help around the house, with shopping, sometimes moving around. And just as importantly, I need companionship, human contact. Evelyn nodded but said nothing, giving me a chance to speak. I have some savings, I continued. $450,000. I'd like to make you a deal. You'll be my assistant for the rest of my time, a year, 2 years, maybe a little more, and I'll bequeath all my savings to you. Her eyes widened in surprise. Hamish, that's a very generous offer, she said cautiously. But why me? You have a son, a family. With Garrett, as I said, we have a complicated relationship, I sighed. To be honest, he wants to put me in a nursing home and forget about me. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life among strangers, in a sterile, impersonal environment. I understand, she nodded. But still, why me? Because you're the person I'm interested in being with, I answered simply. A person I can talk to about books, about life, about anything. Because you were my best friend's daughter, and I know Vernon raised you to be honest and decent. And because, from what I remember from our conversations, you could use the money. She lowered her eyes, clearly embarrassed by that last sentence. Yes, I'm in financial trouble, she admitted quietly. The divorce left me with debts that I'm still paying off. And with the library hours being cut back, money's been tight. But I don't want you to think that I'm going to do this just for the money. I don't, I assured her. If I did, I wouldn't have made you this offer. She hesitated, staring out the window. I didn't rush her, realizing that the decision wasn't easy. What exactly would be my responsibilities? She finally asked. To come to my house a few times a week, I answered. Help with shopping, cleaning, cooking. Accompany me on walks while I can still go out. Help with paperwork, paying bills. And just be there to talk. Read aloud to me when I can't do it myself. What if you need medical attention? Body care? There are special services for that, I repeated. I don't expect you to perform the functions of a nurse. Just what a normal person can do, friend. She thought again. Where would I live? Here, with you? No, of course not, I shook my head. You would live at your place, just as you do now. You'd just come to me on a certain schedule. Of course, if at some point I get really bad, I might have to consider a 24-hour presence, but that's a long way off, and then we can discuss options. And you're leaving me all your savings? She still couldn't believe it. Yes, I confirmed. I'll change the will tomorrow if you agree. The money will be yours when I die. Until then, I'll pay you monthly for your services, say $2,000 a month. That's more than you get at the library, right? A lot more, she nodded. But Hamish, what will your son say when he finds out? Garrett already knows I'm not leaving him that money, I said. He won't be happy, of course, but it's my decision and there's nothing he can do about it. Evelyn looked at me carefully. Are you sure it's what you want? You won't regret it later? I'm absolutely sure, I said firmly. This is money I've been saving all my life. I want it to go to the man who will make my last years dignified and comfortable, not someone who sees me only as a burden. She was silent again, and I could see that she was really thinking seriously about my proposal, weighing the pros and cons. I need time to think about it, she said at last. It's a very serious decision. Of course, I agreed. I understand. How much time do you need? Give me until tomorrow, she asked. I'll call you tomorrow night and give you an answer. Okay, I nodded. That's reasonable. We talked some more about little things and soon she left, promising to call tomorrow. I closed the door behind her and returned to my chair feeling oddly relieved. I'd made the offer, expressed what I wanted to say. Now the decision was up to Evelyn. I spent the evening thinking, was I doing the right thing? Had I been too hasty in proposing? Should I have thought of other options? But the more I thought about it, the more I was convinced that this was the best solution. Evelyn was exactly the person I wanted to spend the time I had left with. Intelligent, well-read, calm. A person who wouldn't look at me with pity or disgust when my condition worsened. The next day, I took a cab to the bank. The meeting with the lawyer was quick and businesslike. I changed my will, naming Evelyn Prescott as the sole heir to all my savings. The lawyer explained that the will could be contested by Garrett as my direct heir, but that he had little chance of success if I was of sound mind and memory at the time the document was drawn up. "Don't worry, Mr. Eldridge," the lawyer assured me. "Your right to dispose of your property is protected by law. If your son decided to contest the will, he would have to prove that you were incapacitated or under duress, which, from our conversation, was clearly not the case." I returned home feeling that I had taken an important step. Now I had to wait for Evelyn's decision. She called at exactly 7 o'clock that evening, as promised. I picked up the phone with some trepidation. "Hamish?" Her voice sounded firm. "I've been thinking about your proposal." "I?" I held my breath. "I agree," she said simply. "But I'd like to discuss some details." "Of course." Relief came over me in a warm wave. "Come over whenever it's convenient for you." "I can come by tomorrow after work," she offered. "I'll have a list of questions I'd like to clear up." "Great," I agreed. "I'll be waiting." After the conversation, I felt the tension of the last few days finally let go. A solution had been found. A plan had been made. The future no longer looked so bleak and hopeless. The next day, Evelyn came in with a notebook in which she had written down a whole list of questions. She took a serious, businesslike approach, and I was grateful for that. We discussed her visit schedule, specific responsibilities, payment arrangements, what to do if my condition deteriorated dramatically, how to interact with medical services. She wrote down my answers and offered her solutions. Many of them were very reasonable and practical. "I think we should have a written agreement," she suggested at the end, "so that everything is clear and understandable for both of us, and so that your son has no reason to challenge our arrangements." "I agree," I nodded. "That makes sense." "And," she looked at me seriously, "I want you to know that I'm not doing this just for the money. Yes, it's important to me, and I'm not being hypocritical. But more importantly, you were my father's best friend. He always spoke of you with great respect and warmth, and I'm glad I can do something for you in return." I was touched by her words. "Thank you, Evelyn," I said. "It means a lot to me." We decided that she would start coming to see me in 2 days, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, from 2 to 6 in the afternoon. The rest of the time I could manage on my own or call for help over the phone if the need arose. As my condition worsened, we would adjust the schedule. When Evelyn left, I felt a warmth spill over into my soul. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the future. I knew that there would be someone who would take care of me, not out of obligation or money, but because he really cared. I picked up my phone and dialed Garrett's number. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to share my decision, or maybe I just wanted to hear his voice, or maybe to give him another chance. He didn't answer. The phone went to voicemail after the 5th beep. I didn't bother leaving a message. What could I say? "Hey, son, I just disinherited you in favor of my late friend's daughter?" That would have been cruel and pointless. I put the phone down and walked to the window. It was starting to rain outside, fine and warm. People hurried to take cover, opening their umbrellas or pulling their hoods up. Life went on in its usual rhythm, oblivious to the little human dramas. I thought about how strangely life works. Until a week ago, I was sure I would spend the rest of my days in a boarding house, alone and forgotten, or, at best, in a house with my son and his family, feeling like a burden and an object of annoyance. And now I have hope for a decent old age, for human companionship, for the fact that the last pages of my life will not be empty and gray, but filled with meaning and warmth. All thanks to a chance meeting in a cafe, which opened my eyes to the true nature of my son, and thanks to an old friendship that gave me a connection to Evelyn. I wasn't angry with Garrett. I just accepted him for who he was, self-centered, selfish, focused on his own interests. Maybe someday he'd realize what he'd missed out on. Maybe someday he'll regret his choices, but that will be his path, his lesson, and my path was now set. The last years in Evelyn's company, with books, with conversation, with a dignity I would not lose even in sickness. I stepped away from the window and sat down in a chair. Tomorrow a new chapter of my life would begin, and despite the illness, despite the inevitable ending, I was ready to live it to the best of my ability. Time amazingly changes one's perception of life. During the 2 years of my illness, which at first seemed like a sentence, turned into a period of unexpected calmness and even happiness. A special kind of happiness, quiet, thoughtful, free from fuss and worry. Evelyn kept her promise. At first she came to my house 3 times a week for a few hours at a time as we had agreed. She helped with the cleaning, cooked dinner, went shopping. But most importantly, she talked to me. About books, about life, about her observations and thoughts. I didn't feel like a patient or a ward. I felt like a friend, an interlocutor, a person whose opinion was interesting and important. After about 6 months of our meetings, my condition deteriorated noticeably. I was almost unable to walk on my own and needed help with even the simplest activities. Then Evelyn herself offered to move in with me. "Hamish," she said one day as she helped me take my medication, "I think I should move in with you. 3 days a week isn't enough. You need constant help." I tried to object, saying it was too big a sacrifice on her part, that she was young and should have her own life. But she was adamant. "My apartment is rented anyway, and the rent goes up every month," she explained practically. "And here you have a spare room. I'll be able to spend more time with you, and it'll be easier for both of us. Besides," she added with a slight smile, "where else am I going to find such an appreciative listener for my discussions of Jane Austen?" We both laughed, and I agreed. A week later, Evelyn moved in with me, taking the small guest room. She brought with her few belongings and many books. Her books filled the empty spaces on my shelves as if finding a home among my own volumes. It was symbolic. Our libraries merged, as did our lives. I noticed immediately how the atmosphere in the apartment changed. It was full of life. The smell of freshly brewed coffee in the morning, the quiet rustling of pages as Evelyn read in her room, the sound of music. She loved classical music and sometimes played it in the background. From the cold shelter of a lonely old man, my apartment became a warm, living home. In the morning, Evelyn would help me get up, wash and dress. Then she would prepare breakfast, usually oatmeal with fruit or scrambled eggs. We would eat breakfast together, discussing the day's plans or just talking about what we had read the day before. Then she would go to the library. She had not given up her work, although she had reduced her hours to a minimum. I would stay alone, reading or looking out the window, sometimes dozing off. In the evening, she often read aloud to me. When my eyesight became too weak to read on my own, it was a real lifesaver. We reread many of my favorite books: Dickens, Tolstoy, Hemingway. We also discovered new authors that I had only heard of but never read before: Haruki Murakami, Donna Tartt, Khaled Hosseini. Evelyn read expressively with just the right intonation, sometimes stopping so we could discuss a particularly interesting passage or thought. One evening, when we had finished Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea, I shared with her my thoughts on life and death. "You know, Evelyn," I said, looking out the window at the setting sky, "I used to be afraid of death, not the fact of the end, but the fact that I would leave without having done something important, without having finished some major work of my life. Now I realize that was a mistake. There is no main labor, no great goal. There is just life, day by day, minute by minute, and it's important to live it consciously, fully. Evelyn listened attentively without interrupting. I think, I continued, that now, when my body is failing, I'm actually living more fully than when I was healthy, because I appreciate every moment, every ray of sunshine, every sip of tea, every conversation with you. It's a lot like Zen Buddhism, she said thoughtfully. Awareness, being in the moment. Maybe illness is a kind of forced meditation. I grinned. Perhaps it is, though I'd prefer voluntary meditation in a healthy body. We both laughed, and the conversation moved on to other topics. But this thought, about the value of the moment, the importance of being present, became one of the centerpieces of our conversations. Evelyn often told me about her life, about her childhood, the loss of her mother, her difficult relationship with her father in her teenage years, her failed marriage. There was no self-deprecation or self-pity in her stories, just a calm acceptance of the facts and an attempt to learn from them. I thought love was supposed to be like in novels, she said, paging through photos in an old album. Passionate, all-consuming, dramatic. That's why I married Nate. He was just like that, impetuous, unpredictable. Only later did I realize that behind that unpredictability was just irresponsibility. He didn't know how or want to take care of others. And now? I asked cautiously. Would you like to meet someone? She thought for a moment before answering. I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm missing something important by being alone. But then I think, what if what I'm looking for isn't in a romantic relationship? What if real intimacy could be in friendship, in shared interests, in shared creativity? Like you and me? I asked, half jokingly. Yes, she smiled, and tears glistened in her eyes. Like you and me, Hamish. It was one of those moments of sincerity that had come between us more often as my condition worsened. It was as if the approach of death was sweeping away all conventions, all barriers, allowing us to talk only about the most important things. About a year into our life together, an event happened that I was both looking forward to and dreading. Garrett called. I hadn't spoken to him since our fight, though I occasionally got updates on him and the grandchildren through mutual acquaintances. I knew they hadn't bought the house by the ocean apparently. Without my money, the plan wasn't feasible. I knew that Toby was having trouble in school and that Nora had started ballet. But there was no direct contact. Evelyn had brought me the phone when it rang. Her son's name popped up on the screen. It's Garrett, she said quietly. Do you want me to answer it? No, I shook my head. I'll get it. I pressed the answer button and a familiar voice filled the room. I put it on speaker so I wouldn't have to hold the phone. Dad? It's me, Garrett. Hello, son, I answered calmly. It's been a long time since I've heard from you. Yeah, it's been a while. I could hear the tension in his voice. How is your health? As well as can be expected, I said. Deteriorating, but I'm not complaining. I'm told there's a woman living with you? He cut to the chase without further ado. Yes, Evelyn Prescott, daughter of my late friend Vernon. She's helping me out. I see, he said quietly. Dad, I've been thinking about our last conversation, about what happened. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't answer right away. His apology sounded stilted, insincere. Or maybe it was my bitterness that kept me from believing his remorse. What exactly are you sorry for, Garrett? I finally asked. Everything, he sighed. The way I talked to you. The things we planned without you knowing. The way I'd taken so long to call. And why did you decide to call now? Pause. I could almost hear him picking his words. I miss you, he said finally. And the kids miss you. Nora asks about you all the time. She does? I couldn't hide the doubt in my voice. I thought you didn't want them to see me, so they'd remember me, as I am now, not as a helpless old man. Isn't that what you said the last time we met? Dad? I was angry, he said with a pleading tone in his voice. I wasn't thinking. Of course I want the kids to see you. You're their grandfather. I looked at Evelyn. She was at the window pretending not to listen, but I could see her shoulders tense. Garrett, I said tiredly, let's be honest with each other. You're not calling because you miss me. You're calling because you found out I changed my will. Silence. A long silence that gives away more than any words. Who told you? He finally said it. No one. I just know you, son. He sighed as if giving up. Okay, yeah, I heard about it. From Eric Jenkins, your neighbor. He said you're leaving all your money to some woman who lives with you now. Is that true? Yes, I saw no point in denying it. Evelyn will be my sole heiress. Dad, his voice became harsh. Do you realize what this looks like? An old, sick man rewriting a will in favor of a young woman who suddenly appeared in his life? Any court would see manipulation. Are you going to sue, Garrett? I asked the question bluntly. If I have to. He didn't deny it. It's not fair, Dad. I'm your son. That money should stay in the family. Family? I felt anger rising inside me. The same family that wanted to put me in boarding school and leave for the ocean with my money? The same family that hadn't called or visited me in over a year? Dad, I apologized. He raised his voice. What more do you want from me? Sincerity, I answered quietly. I want you to admit that you came for the money, not because you miss me. There was another pause, then his voice without pretense. Okay, yes, I'm worried about the money, because it's a lot of money and it could change our lives, give our children a better education, better opportunities. Is that so bad? Isn't it natural for a father to want the best for his children? It's natural, I agreed, just like it's natural for a grandfather to want the best for his grandchildren, but not at the cost of his dignity, not at the cost of spending the last years of your life alone and desperate. We could visit you, he said quickly, regularly, every weekend. You could move in with us. Garrett, I interrupted him, that's enough. We both know those are empty words. You're only coming now that you know about the money. If it wasn't for it, you wouldn't have called. That's not true, he was almost shouting. Prove it, I said calmly. Come and visit. No money talk, no trying to talk me into changing my will. Just like a son to his father. Bring the children. Let's restore relations not for the sake of the inheritance, but for our own sake. He didn't say a word. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, trying to find a way out of the trap he'd put himself in. Yeah, I can't anytime soon, he finally said. Audra and I are on a very tight schedule, and the kids have class. I see, I sighed. Then we have nothing more to talk about, Garrett. I'm not changing the will. Evelyn took care of me when you couldn't take care of me. She deserved that money not as payment for services, but as recognition of her kindness and humanity. Dad, wait, he sounded almost desperate. Let's not be in a hurry. Maybe we could meet on neutral ground, a cafe or a restaurant. Garrett, I hardly ever leave the house anymore, I reminded him. It's hard for me to get around. Well then. He hesitated. Then I'll be there. Next week. Saturday. Okay, I agreed, though I didn't believe he'd come. Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll be waiting. We said goodbye, and I hung up. Evelyn turned to me, worry in her eyes. Are you all right? She asked quietly. Yes, I smiled weakly. Just tired. Is he coming on Saturday? I doubt it. I shook my head. But even if he does, it won't change anything. My decision remains the same. Evelyn nodded and squeezed my hand gently. You know, she said thoughtfully, sometimes I think about my father, how we used to fight when I was a teenager, how I blamed him for all my problems, and how later, as I got older, I realized that he was doing the best he could, given the circumstances. Maybe your son will realize that someday. Maybe, I didn't argue. But I'll never see it again. Saturday came, but Garrett didn't show up. Didn't call, didn't send a text apologizing. He just didn't show up. I wasn't surprised, but I still felt a pang of disappointment. Not so much because of my son. I didn't expect much from him anymore, but because of the grandchildren. I missed Toby and Nora, their childlike directness, their questions and laughter, but apparently they were not destined to be part of the finale of my story. As time went on, my condition continued to deteriorate. By the end of my second year with Evelyn, I could hardly get out of bed. My arms wouldn't listen, my speech became slurred. Only my consciousness remained clear, so clear that sometimes it seemed like a curse. I understood everything, realized everything, but I could do nothing about my own body, which betrayed me day after day. Evelyn was around all the time. She had left her job at the library, partly because I needed constant care, partly because funding had finally been cut and her position had been reduced. Now she devoted all her time to taking care of me, feeding me from a spoon when I could no longer hold cutlery, helped with hygiene when I was no longer able to control my natural functions, read aloud to me when my sight was almost completely gone. Never, not once did I see disgust or pity in her eyes, only calm acceptance, only a desire to help. She treated me with the same respect she had spoken to me with when I could still sit in a chair and hold a cup of tea. And it was a real gift to die with my dignity intact. One morning, as she wiped my face with a damp towel, I caught her eye and tried to smile. "Thank you," I whispered with difficulty, "for everything." She realized I didn't just mean this particular care. "You're welcome, Hamish," she said softly. "You've done just as much for me." "How?" I was genuinely surprised. "What could I have done for you in this condition?" She hesitated, choosing her words. "You gave me purpose," she said at last. "Meaning, a sense that I was needed, that I was doing something important. And you became my family, the family I hadn't had since my father died." I felt tears come to my eyes. She gently wiped them away. "You know," she continued, sitting down beside me on the edge of the bed, "when you first offered me this deal, I accepted it mostly for the money. I was desperate, my debts were mounting, my work was getting scarce. But very quickly the money faded into the background. I realized that I was getting something much more valuable, the opportunity to be around a wise, kind man, to learn from you, to listen to your stories, to see life through your eyes. I wanted to respond, to tell her how much she meant to me, but the words wouldn't come. I just looked at her, hoping my eyes would convey what my lips couldn't. She understood. She leaned over and kissed my forehead. "I know, Hamish. I love you too. I've been thinking a lot about my life these past weeks, about what I've done and what I haven't done, about my successes and my mistakes, about the people I've loved and the people who've loved me. I've thought about Eleanor, my wife, who left before me, about how we dreamed of growing old together, sitting on the porch of our house, watching the sunset, holding hands. Fate had decreed otherwise, but I was grateful for the 32 years we had, for every day by her side. I thought of Vernon, my best friend, with whom we'd shared joys and sorrows, fishing and beer, talking politics and sports, about how strangely life works. His daughter now taking care of me in my final days. It's like a part of Vernon is still around me. I thought about Garrett, my son, about where I went wrong in raising him, what I did wrong. Maybe I was too soft, or maybe I was too demanding. Maybe he was just born that way, selfish, self-centered. I didn't know the answers to these questions. I only knew that despite everything, I loved him, and forgive myself for the mistakes I may have made in raising him. I did what I thought was right at the time. That's all any of us can do. Thoughts of forgiveness led me to thinking about Garrett. Had I forgiven him? I thought about it for a long time, and the honest answer was no. I wasn't angry with him. I didn't wish him harm. But I couldn't forgive his betrayal, his willingness to abandon me for his own gain. Maybe that was my final weakness, my inability to forgive my own son. but I resolved to be honest with myself in these last days. The day came when I realized I was about to die. There were no dramatic premonitions or signs, just an inner knowing, an almost calm acceptance of the fact. I asked Evelyn to sit beside me. "Soon," I whispered, saving my strength. She understood at once. She nodded, squeezed my hand. "I'm here," she said simply. "I'll be right here." "Read it." I made a faint gesture toward the bookshelf. "What is it, Hamish?" "Eliot," I said with difficulty. "The Four Quartets." She smiled as if she'd been expecting it. She got up, went to the shelf, found the book she wanted. She came back and sat down next to me. "From the beginning?" I nodded. She opened the book and began to read in a quiet, calm voice. "Time present and time past. Perhaps both are present in time future, and time future is contained in time past." I closed my eyes, letting the words envelop me, penetrating to my very core. They were exactly the words I wanted to hear in my last hours. About time, about memory, about the meaning of life and death. Evelyn read, stopping occasionally for a break or a drink of water. She read all day, with breaks when I dozed off, and continued reading when I woke up in the evening, feeling my strength finally leaving me. "And all shall be well, and all shall be well, and everything shall be well." Her voice sounded distant, as if through a fog. I felt her hand in mine, warm, alive. There was so much more I wanted to say to her, but I couldn't say a word. Just stared at her, trying to convey with my gaze all the gratitude, all the love I felt. She leaned toward me, and I saw tears in her eyes. "It's okay, Hamish," she whispered. "You can go now. It's going to be okay." And I believed her, because if people like Evelyn existed in the world, then everything was really going to be all right. Despite the pain, the betrayal, the loss, despite death. I closed my eyes and let myself let go. The last thing I felt was her lips on my forehead, light as the touch of a butterfly. And the last thing I thought was how strange and beautiful life is, where at the very end of the road, it's not loneliness that awaits us, but love. Not the kind of love they write about in novels, but another kind of love. Quiet, deep, real. A love that does not demand and does not ask, but simply exists.